One of the marvelous things that happened in the summer of '68 was that '67, that summer, was so much on our minds, and so many of the stories we were doing had to deal with recovering from that riot, that war we had with ourselves and our city. And the thing that made what the Tigers were doing even sweeter. When you're coming off something that hurt that much to something that tasted so great, your joy, your fun, your happiness, it seems to me, was intensified.
A lot of people thought that by the Tigers getting off to a great start in '68 really settled the city down and helped people to have something positive and something that everybody could pull for, and that was the Detroit Tigers.
1968 Tigers, a unique team and probably the best loved sports team in Detroit history. And they were a colorful team full of characters and full of guys that loved to play on the field and off the field. Tigers had confidence going into the World Series, although they were underdogs. They knew they had to face great Bob Gibson. That was a big problem because Gibson was an outstanding pitcher. And the opening game of the series pitted Gibson, who had the great earned run average, against McLean, who had won 31. And they were the two aces of the two different leagues, and it was a great setup. Gibson, of course, set a strikeout record to beat the Tigers.
Norm Cash is up next, and the count goes to 3-2. And this pitch makes history. A standing ovation for Bob Gibson.
Of course, Bob Gibson was just outstanding. He broke the all-time strikeout record, and I believe I tied the record in that game for strikeouts.
The batter is Al Kaline.
And Norm Cash, the very next hitter, he broke the record. And a funny story about that, well, of course, it's funny now. Norm Cash called me in my room, and he says, "Thanks, Al." I says, "Thanks for what? We lost." He says, "No." He says, "You tied the record. I broke the record by striking out, and I'm going to get $500 for going on television in the morning. So I just want to thank you for letting me get $500.
Bob's not quite finished. One more out to go. And the batter is Detroit's leading home run hitter, Willie Horton. It's a record 17 strikeouts. Gibson also ties Lefty Gomez's record of 6 straight victories in World Series competition. It's a new day and new excitement. Millions of fans wonder if the underdog Tigers can shake off the effects of Bob Gibson's 17 strikeouts.
I mean, I knew I was pitching the second game, and you know, win or lose, I'm still pitching the second game, and I just went out and did my thing.
Last of the night, Mickey Lolich faces Ron Davis with 2 out. Davis lifts a pop-up. Cash moves under. That's it. The Tigers have evened the World Series at 1 apiece.
We ended up winning 8-1. So, I mean, it really wasn't that difficult of a ball game at all.
And now it's off to Detroit as the scene of the World Series shifts for the 3rd game. In Detroit, the enthusiasm for the home team is tremendous, and hopes have been reborn by Mickey Lolich's victory.
We noticed that a lot of us were tight and weren't the team that we were during the season.
Now keep your eye on pitcher Horner as he goes for that final out. The batter is pinch hitter Jim Price. He sends a fly ball to deep left. Lou Brock has it. It's a happy Joe Horner as the favored Cardinals take a 2-1 lead in the series.
Had to relax a little bit more, and we finally did, even though we lost a game in Detroit.
Next day, there's a hangover sadness in Detroit, and the skies rain down on Tiger Stadium. But series fans can't be discouraged by this. They come out anyway, for today is the occasion of the heralded rematch between Denny McLean and Bob Gibson. In the last of the ninth, the Cardinals click off a neat double play to end the ballgame. Bob Gibson sets an all-time World Series record with his 7th consecutive victory.
And then they got behind 3-1. It looked like it was all over.
So, you know, it was just basically trying to get the guys together and relaxing, and we knew we were a good ball club, and we knew that we could play with the Cardinals.
One more loss, and Detroit is done. But does that dampen the spirit of Detroit? Does it matter to them that only 2 teams in World Series history have ever come back from that kind of deficit? If 2 did, why can't another?
Well, Game 5 was probably the most interesting day of the whole campaign for the World Series. St. Louis had actually put us down pretty good. You know, we were down 3-1, like you said, and it's like, well, let's give them a good showing anyway today.
Well, you know, it's a must-win game. Of course, we had Mickey Lolich. And by the way, the scouts throughout all of baseball thought Mickey would be the most effective pitcher against the Cardinals. And of course, McLean had the great year, unbelievable year, super pitcher. But they thought Lolich would be the guy that would give the Cardinals a lot more trouble because he had that good sinker, that hard slider down and in, where Denny was more of a high ball pitcher, and of course the Cardinals had a lot of great hitters.
It's a 3-2 ball game now, and that's how it is in the Cardinal 5th when 2 key plays turn the series around. First, with 1 out, Lou Brock gets his 11th base hit of the series. Horton made a good play on the rebound to hold Brock to a double. How important this is for Lolich and the Tigers soon becomes apparent. Javier's the batter. Brock has a short lead at second. Stanley's been ducking behind him. Horton gets set in left. Javier singles sharply to left field, and Brock heads home. The throw to Freehand is perfect, and plate ump Doug Harvey calls Brock out. Now let's take another look in slow motion. Look at Freehand's left leg blocking the plate. This could be the crucial play of this 1968 World Series. The Cardinals fail to score in the 5th, as Tiger manager Mayo Smith makes a crucial decision and lets Mickey Lolich bat for himself.
And all of a sudden the out is made in front of me, and I stand up and turn back towards the dugout, and nothing's happening. I mean, Gates Brown, our super duper pinch hitter, is supposed to be coming up out of the dugout, but he wasn't coming out of the dugout. And I was standing there looking at Mayo Smith, the manager, and he was signaling me to go up to home plate. And Mayo was signaling to me, you know, he puts his hands up like, you're hitting. And I'm like, what? What's going on here, you know? And I ended up hitting a little dunker fly ball into right center field, and I was yelling at that thing and swearing at it and everything in the world to get it to fall in for a base hit, and it did. And that was really the thing that started the rally that brought us back.
That game was a must game. Of course, it was. They were ahead of us. We were 2 runs down, and they brought in a left-handed pitcher that I fouled a lot of pitches off, and was able to bloop a sort of half line drive type of hit into right center field.
With 1 out and his team trailing by 1 run, he's the man on the spot. The count's 1-1, and K-Line loops a hit into right center. In comes Lolich and McAuliffe with a tying and lead run. It's 4-3 Detroit. K-Line is having a great series.
We scored runs that inning and ended up winning the game, you know, so everything worked out.
And the Tigers rallied and took the series back to St. Louis, won the 6th game, and then eventually set up that great pitching duel in the 7th between Lolich and Bob Gibson.
And it was just one of those things where Denny pitched and pitched well, and in St. Louis we scored those 10 runs in 1 inning, and I think Norm Cash and I both got 2 hits in 1 inning.
The bases are loaded again as K-Line gets his 2nd single of the inning, and 2 more runs come home. Norm Cash gets his 2nd single of the inning to add another run.
Not too many people had done before. Both Norm and I were able to get base hits in 2 base hits in 1 inning, and we went on to win. And of course, all came down to Game 7.
Detroit has tied the series at 3 games all. A few days ago, it was a Cardinal runaway, and now it goes down to the final day.
And all of a sudden, Mayo Smith, you know, signals me to, you know, come down towards the end of the dugout, towards the tunnel. So, I mean, I walk down there, and he takes me down in the tunnel. And he says, can you pitch tomorrow? And I says, well, sure, Mayo, there's no problem. I mean, if you need me to pitch a couple innings for you, I says, I can pitch in relief. He says, no. He says, not relief. He says, I want you to start. And I says, what?
Game 7. Can Bob Gibson be beaten? Can the Tigers stop Lou Brock? Is Mickey Lolich going to wind up as the hero of this series?
Of course, we had the big man on the mound for us, and Mickey Lolich, and coming back with just a couple days rest. And from what I understand, and talking to Mickey about that Game 7, was that Mayo asked him, can you give us a few innings? I mean, of course, Mickey said, sure, I can give you a few innings. And then after a couple innings, Mayo said, can you give me another one? And of course, Mickey would say, yeah, I give you another one. And he ended up throwing a complete game.
Tim McCarver's up, 2 outs in the 9th. It's a pop-up. Bill Freehand waits for it. The Tigers are the new world champions.
My fondest memory of that year is the 7th game in the 7th inning when Northrop got the triple, and then Lolich bore down, and Mickey was a guy who came back with only 2 days rest. Had to face the Bob Gibson, probably the most dominating pitcher at that time in baseball, and outpitched the great Bob Gibson. Finished it off and got the championship trophy for the Tigers.
Without Lolich, of course, that would not have happened, because he kept a very good ball club, the St. Louis Cardinals, from scoring a lot of runs.
The thing that was kind of a revelation for me is that the Tigers that year were really one hell of a baseball team. I mean, one hell of a baseball team. And Mickey Lolich winning 3 games, this quiet, big burly guy, didn't have much to say, shows up like the pro he was, and just does it.
And he was a great hero, Mickey Lolich was. He was the MVP and 3-game winner of the World Series, and certainly that alone ought to put him in the Hall of Fame.
I'm glad I pitched then, because throughout my life around Michigan, wherever I go, everybody remembers me as the guy that pitched in the '68 World Series. They forget about the 13 years I pitched. They forget about the great year I had in '71, but they remember the '68 World Series. So I'm really glad I had a chance to do it.